Act, we're not going to be prepared for the jobs that disproportionately go to men, and particularly white men. So I'll stop there. You got a lot of questions. Let's bring in the questions, and I'll answer the questions as they come.
Thank you very much, Congressman. Now, as a quick reminder for everyone on the call with us, this is an interactive forum, and we want to hear from you. So to ask the Congressman a question tonight, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. And when it's online, you can submit your question right below the streaming player. And now to get into the Q&A portion of the call, I'd like to introduce Ruthie Gurevich, Representative Bowman's policy advisor. Ruthie, welcome.
Thank you all for joining us this evening. I'll be asking the Congress questions that have come directly from constituents in New York's 16th Congressional District. Our office has already received over 70 questions for this town hall, so we will not be able to get to them all this evening, but we will do our best to get to as many as we can. For anyone who submitted questions online in advance of this event that we do not get to this evening, our office will follow up with you to ensure your question is answered following this event. If you have any additional questions after this evening, we encourage you to send them to us via email at bowmantownhall@mail.house.gov. Congressman Bowman, our first question comes from multiple different constituents across our district who wrote in regards to your no vote on the bipartisan infrastructure bill. They have asked, isn't doing something better than nothing?
So yes, absolutely doing something is better than nothing, and we got something done. However, we've been fighting and organizing to make sure that it's not an all or nothing proposition. You know, at the beginning of this process, there was no real negotiations happening with the Build Back Better Act or the Human Infrastructure Bill. There was no negotiations happening. It was at about 1 trillion, 1.5 trillion, and myself and the Progressive Caucus began negotiations around the priorities that we know mattered most to our district and mattered most to the country. And that's how we were able to get it up to 3.5 and keep it at 1.75 with all of the key pieces that I mentioned at the beginning of the call still being included. I'm thankful that the speaker included paid family leave. She brought it back in because it was initially taken out. It was 12 weeks, then it went down to 0. Now it's back to 4. So, you know, the all or nothing proposition, you know, is a dangerous one because when we negotiate, quote unquote, and we just take a little something, usually women, children, seniors, and people of color are left behind, as well as our immigrant community, as well as, you know, people who don't want to focus on issues like climate change. Because even though, you know, members of my party aren't climate deniers in the same way, sometimes the fossil fuel lobby and others get involved and compromise their position when it comes to the issue of climate change. So, you know, we were holding the line, and we did a good job of negotiating a good package that both were supposed to be voted out of the House, and I hope the other one is voted out next week. And then we're going to have to continue to apply pressure and push so that I can make it out of the Senate. But it's never all or nothing. Our community, everyone within our community, regardless of where they live within the district, deserves to, you know, have investments in what their needs are, because if we invest in the needs of people, they improve the economy, and then we see improvements in education and healthcare and many other areas.
The next question is from Sam in Rye. Sam asks, are you taking construction jobs away from the district?
Absolutely not. We are going to be bringing construction jobs to the district for a diverse group of people. You know, one thing about the no vote is the no vote didn't tank the bill. The bill was going to pass anyway. The no vote was to make sure we are still holding the line and holding my colleagues accountable so that they pass the human infrastructure part of the bill. So no, before we voted for the infrastructure bill, we were fighting to bring jobs into the district. I myself held a job fair in the district. We just did a briefing with the Army Corps of Engineers and Mamaroneck to determine the needs after Hurricane Ida. The Army Corps of Engineers are going to be coming to different parts of the district as well to do assessments. So we're working to bring jobs and resources into the district, not just in the field of construction, but in other fields as well that I've discussed before. So absolutely not.
The next question is from Dorothy, who lives in the Bronx. Dorothy asks, is there any assistance for seniors, home repairs, or mortgage assistance?
Yeah, so great question. None of those, there's none of that in the infrastructure part of the bill, the one we just passed. That's one of the main reasons why we were fighting for the Build Back Better Act. The Build Back Better Act has support for home repairs, has mortgage assistance support, as I mentioned, $150 billion in housing. And in terms of our seniors, we were fighting for a few things. We were fighting to decrease the age for access to Medicare. We didn't win that fight. We wanted to go from 65 to 55. We weren't able to win that fight. We also wanted to include dental, optical, and hearing. We were only able to get hearing at this point. So we didn't win that fight, but we were fighting for it. But another big win here is not just the hearing, but we're going to be expanding Obamacare to serve at least 5 million more people who were kept out of the original Obamacare piece of legislation. So some call it a Medicaid expansion, which is going to be huge and transformative for 5 million people across the country. But that's in the Build Back Better Act. It's not in the infrastructure bill that passed this past last Friday.
The next question comes from Joe. Joe asks, why did you vote no? This isn't going to help your constituents?
It is going to help my constituents. It is a bill I support, and I would have voted yes on it if both bills were passed together, as was the plan all along, and if my colleagues didn't change their mind at the last minute to ask for a CBO score. Both bills were ready to be voted on Friday. I called, and we all called for them both to be voted on Friday. That didn't happen. If we would have voted on the infrastructure bill a few days later or a week later, when the CBO score was back, it would have passed if we would have done it together. But again, we have to hold my colleagues accountable now to pass the Build Back Better Act. They said they would do it the week of the 15th. They signed a letter. The letter is non-binding, so hopefully they don't change their mind. And we have to make sure we pass both bills, because we can't do the hard infrastructure without the human infrastructure.
Okay, the next question comes from a constituent in Mount Vernon. This constituent asks, Hurricane Ida caused severe flash floods, and there are pre-existing sewer infrastructure problems in Mount Vernon. Why did you vote against the bill and the sewage infrastructure?
Again, it's a bill I support. I just wanted both bills to be voted on together so we didn't lose the human infrastructure. Secondly, as I mentioned before, we worked with local elected officials to make sure there's money coming in as part of the appropriations bill to deal with the sewage issue in Mount Vernon. Again, I support the BIF bill. We just need to make sure that we're holding the line, holding my colleagues accountable to make sure they're doing both the hard and the soft infrastructure part of it. I am not against infrastructure. This was just a strategy and something we've used for several months in negotiation, and I didn't want to pivot away from the human infrastructure and possibly have it be gutted or reduced tremendously even more than it's already been gutted. It's already gone from 3.5 trillion to 1.75, and now it's back up to 2.1. Hopefully it could stay there because we need both. And then lastly, the hard infrastructure bill helps us to, fix the sewage issue, yes. Helps us to fix roads, bridges, and tunnels, yes. helps us to somewhat fix the problems related to climate change. But in the Build Back Better Act, the $550 billion investing in environmental mitigation will stop the consistency of the storms that we are seeing that create the damage in the first place. So again, you can't have one without the other.
The next question is from Arthur in the Bronx. Arthur asks, of the many items in the Build Back Better Act and the likelihood that it will be diminished as the CBO scores and others in Congress call for more reductions, what parts of the bill are you willing to throw out?
Well, we don't think the CBO score is going to show that it's not paid for. That's the purpose of the score. The purpose of the CBO score is to show is this thing paid for or not. And we already had an analysis from the Ways and Means Committee in the House and the White House that shows that it's paid for. The CBO score is just an additional layer that my colleagues decided to take at the last minute. So, when we worked on the $3.5 trillion bill, we already had revenue raises of $2.4 trillion. And I myself, our office is about to be introducing two bills that can raise an additional $1.5 trillion. One bill is called the Polluters Paid Climate Fund. We were able to identify the top 20 companies that have contributed to climate damage and the climate catastrophe that we're living in. And those top 20s, most of them foreign companies, will have to pay into a fund which can raise at minimum $500 billion over 10 years, and at maximum $1 trillion over 10 years. We also have another bill that we're going to be introducing called Babies Over Billionaires, which will tax unrealized capital gains at 40%, because right now wealthy people just have capital gains money sitting on the side, not doing anything but building their wealth. And we know the wealthy have to contribute their fair share. So if we tax unrealized capital gains at 40%, that could raise $1 trillion over 10 years. So we were already at $2.4 trillion. We have two bills that would have brought us to $3.9 trillion. So the pay-fors are there, and we're confident that everything that's in the bill will stay and will pass. But it has to be all of us continuing to fight and put pressure on the Senate once it goes to the Senate, but also on leadership in the House.
Next question comes from Erica in Mount Vernon. Erica asks, do you see family childcare fitting into your plan? Could you describe what you will do to make sure family childcare is funded and supported equitably in the Build Back Better plan? Thank you.
Well, family childcare is pretty much my life's work. As it was mentioned, I worked in education for 20 years before coming to Congress. I was a teacher, a middle school principal, and a high school counselor. I know how essential universal childcare is to transforming the lives of millions of kids, particularly kids who come from poverty in this country. With this bill, with the Build Back Better Act, we have universal childcare, universal pre-K, and we're raising and expanding the child tax credit to make it permanent, which means we are permanently lifting 50% of children out of poverty through consistent refundability. So that is a game changer for millions, tens of millions of kids across the country who will now enter kindergarten not just ready to learn, but ready to thrive. And if we could keep paid family leave in the bill, that will finally put us in line with other developed countries around the world. We're one of the only developed countries that doesn't have family leave at all, which is complete insanity. As the wealthiest nation on earth, we should have family leave. So those provisions there, and we have to commend and credit the Biden administration for focusing so much on our children and focusing so much on our families to get us to this point. but we're not over the finish line yet. And that no vote was to hold people accountable and make sure we push over the finish line to make sure all of this stuff is a part of it.
The next question comes from a constituent who just wrote in. They're asking, why did you vote against the infrastructure bill, given that it would hurt the president and possibly hurt the House come next November?
So this was part of the president's agenda from the very beginning. He wanted both bills to be passed at the same time. And thankfully, the hard infrastructure bill was passed. We got Republican support and it was passed. But the other part of the president's agenda is the Build Back Better Act, the human infrastructure bill, which disproportionately benefits women, children, people of color, seniors, and finally focuses on climate change. And another big piece for my district, not just public housing, for our district, not just public housing, but also violence reduction. There are parts of our district where gun violence is way too consistent, and we need a holistic wraparound approach to dealing with that issue. And the Build Back Better Act has $2.5 billion, supposed to be $5 billion, but $2.5 billion to invest in violence reduction. So all of that is a part of the president's agenda as well, and a part of the Democratic agenda. Another part of the Democratic agenda that's very important is us working together, putting boots on the ground in diverse communities across the district and country to engage disengaged voters to grow the electorate. Like, that is very, very important. And we have to do a better job of listening to diverse constituents and bringing them in, as opposed to maintaining a status quo that doesn't meet the needs of every single American. I'm also, I was thinking about this vote very carefully on Friday because I try to be a student of history. The New Deal is celebrated as one of the landmark pieces of legislation in American history. It responded to World War II and the Great Depression, and it gave us Social Security, and it built the middle class and allowed home ownership to expand. The problem with that bill, Black communities were redlined, which contributes to the wealth inequality that we see today, and why public housing, which used to be diverse, only has Black and Latino people living in it. And it kept out domestic workers and care workers, which are mostly Black and Latino women. The New Deal left us out. We cannot vote for a hard infrastructure bill alone and leave out people of color again. Like, that's unacceptable. So again, this is about accountability and making sure we do both pieces of President Biden's agenda, because his agenda is also focused on equity and investing in frontline communities. That's his Justice for the Initiative. And it's my job to work with my colleagues to make sure we pass the whole agenda, not just part of it.
Our next question is about SALT. It's from Tony in the Bronx. Tony asks, why are New York residents not getting their SALT tax? No one, not even President Biden, is talking about this. What are we in the eastern states? Are we chopped liver?
So the good news is the SALT, repealing and replacing SALT at a new threshold is in the Build Back Better Act. It's not in the infrastructure bill. That's something else that wasn't a part of that, right? And I know in my district, some people call SALT a tax giveaway from the wealthy. But I've been listening to and learning about my district since I've gotten in, even before I've gotten in. And I know that there are homeowners in our district who are working multiple jobs to afford their mortgage. And repealing and replacing SALT is a big part of that. So not only was I an original co-sponsor of the SALT legislation back in January or February, I believe, but I'm also, the reason why I voted no is to hold the line and fight to make sure that that provision remains part of the Build Back Better bill. And I think everyone's noticing a theme here tonight. Most of the great things, or there's so many great things in the Build Back Better Act, and I hope you see why we wanted to pass them both together. And sometimes the way it was communicated as if the bills were actually together and conflated. And some may have thought that I voted against all of this stuff. I didn't. I didn't vote against anything. I actually was going to support the BIF if the Build Back Better Act was with it.
Our next question is from Diana in the Bronx. Diana says, I'm a full-time student and I'm finding it difficult to find gainful employment. Are there any programs that myself and others can look forward to that could propel us back into the workforce?
Yes, so there's a huge investment in workforce innovation and workforce development that's a part of the Build Back Better Act. I'm hoping, as I keep mentioning, my colleagues keep their word and pass the Build Back Better Act next week. And, I'm using language like keep their word because we, as a party and as Congress, have been talking about passing both bills together for months. And when we got to the finish line, we didn't do that, and some of my colleagues reneged on doing that. I did not renege. I voted no because from the beginning, and what I've been communicating to the district is we're going to pass both together, and I've been communicating why that was. So yes, the Build Back Better Act has workforce development, workforce innovation programs as part of it. Our office is always looking to bring in additional programs and innovative opportunities for the district in the area of workforce development. So please be in touch with our office about that. And hopefully it'll pass next week. But if it doesn't, let's keep the pressure on and let's stay engaged to make sure my colleagues do the right thing.
Okay, our next question is from Sheila in Yonkers. Sheila asks, why is there so much assistance in the Build Back Better bill going to young, healthy people, and why isn't it going to seniors who need their medications, especially those right below the poverty line?
Well, great question. So the good thing about the senior component of the Build Back Better Act is the country is now able to negotiate prescription drug prices, which is going to dramatically reduce the cost of drugs for our seniors. So that is huge, and that's a game changer. Also for our seniors, housing vouchers, and big shout out to Congresswoman Maxine Waters for fighting to make sure housing vouchers remained a part of the Build Back Better Act. And just to give you a window into like what was happening in Washington, they tried to take out housing vouchers completely from the Build Back Better Act, completely, like take it to zero. And we all know in our district, our seniors need housing vouchers to afford housing. So now they have the vouchers and they have lower drug costs and they have hearing as part of Medicare. Now we have improved their quality of life, put a little extra money in people's pocket that they can spend in whatever way they wish. So it's not just, making sure we take care of our children, which is important. We're taking care of our seniors as well. And we're taking care of our parents and our single moms, especially, who don't have lobbyists like the special interest lobbying to kill the bill. Single moms, children, people with special needs, they don't have lobbyists. It's another part of this bill that's really important. We were trying to expand SSI to make sure our adults with special needs, we can raise the asset cap for them so they can have more money in their pockets. We wanted to invest $8 billion. Some of my colleagues didn't want that in there, but what they are going to do is expand this benefit to indigenous lands and native lands, which is a big deal because we will be able to cover millions more under SSI.
The next question is from Toba in the Bronx. Toba asks, why didn't the congressman have this town hall before he votes? I was surprised when I found out.
So great question. We were on track, we were on pace to vote for both bills on Friday and pass both bills because my colleagues changed their mind at the last minute, we didn't have an opportunity to even socialize the bill within the district, which is something I like to do. And we try to remain engaged with the district at all times, just to always get feedback, always share what's going on, get people's opinions, work with local, not just elected officials, but community-based organizations to craft legislation. We've done that a number of times. But in this instance, it was a last-minute change, and then we were pressured, quite frankly, to vote in support of the bill. And that's one of my learnings since I've been in Congress. This is something that happens quite often, where we've prepared for something, we've organized for something, we've negotiated something, and then there's a last-minute change, and we're expected to vote on the bill. And, it's important to recognize that, governing is not easy. And it takes deep collaboration and working together, and it does take compromise. But in my opinion, it starts with people who are most vulnerable. And what happens is, governing has been going a certain way for many, many decades, even hundreds of years, where certain people benefit and the rest of the people don't. And they're forced to take crumbs. And for me, that's just unacceptable. That's just completely unacceptable. That's why we haven't had public housing investments in decades. That's why we haven't expanded universal pre-K. This universal pre-K expansion is going to be the largest expansion in U.S. history since we created public high schools. Like, that's the type of transformative change that the president is making, which is huge. And we are holding the line to pass his entire agenda, not just half of it.
Our next question is from Barbara from Hastings-on-Hudson. Barbara asks, can you also discuss the urgent matter of passing a bill to ensure election integrity? With so many states now passing laws that threaten free and fair elections, the federal government is our only hope of counteracting those.
So, great question. Let me just say, if it were up to progressives, we would have passed voting rights, we would have passed immigration reform, we would have passed common sense gun reform, and hundreds of other bills that we have already sent to the Senate that is sitting in the Senate. The Senate has passed, at last count, less than 20% of the bills that we've sent over there, right? And this is what I mean about a status quo that has been in place for far too long. And this is what I mean about special interests having a stranglehold on how Congress works. We have to, as soon as we're done passing the Build Back Better Act, we have to pass our budget, which will hopefully be done beginning of December, which will bring so many resources into a lot of projects here in the district. We got to go right to voting rights. And we got to pass voting rights, to your point, to offset what's going on in states across the country. Because if we continue to undermine and suppress the vote, not only will bad actors take control of government, who knows what they're going to do next? I want to also say this. We just came off of 4 years of a president that I think we all agree was not very good. And some have argued the reason why that president was able to rise into power is because of the level of inequality in our country. We have the highest level of inequality since right after the Great Depression. And passing both bills, the hard infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better Act, was going to deal directly with the issue of inequality. Passing the Build Back Better Act on its own, does not do that. We need the hard and the human together.
Our next question is from David. David asks, I really appreciate you sticking up for the least fortunate among us. I live in public housing and don't have my basic needs met. What is in either bill that will help save public housing?
$150 billion invested in public and affordable and housing vouchers. That's huge. should be able to deal with the entire MTA backlog. Here's the other point, and something that I've learned and something that, we're working with local elected officials on. So the president is going to sign the hard infrastructure bill into law on Monday. Immediately after that, as a matter of fact, my office has already begun. We're going to work with local elected officials to make sure we can provide support so they can access the resources from the hard infrastructure bill. We have to do the same thing with the Build Back Better Act, because some of those resources are going to be coming in as grants that we need to apply for. So it should be able to deal with the public housing backlog. It should be able to provide upgrades in terms of environmental upgrades. But one point on that. So we were looking to invest $400 billion in public school upgrades in preparation or to deal with the issue of climate change, retrofitting buildings, solar panels, heat pumps, etc., so that we could end our dependency on fossil fuel. That was completely taken out of the bill, again, by my more conservative colleagues. There was another bill that looked to invest in public buildings, so any public building, not just public schools, public buildings. That bill started at, I believe it was $50 million, and was dramatically decreased to like $3 million at the end of the bill. And this is why I continue to tell you about these contrasts, because this is why we were negotiating and holding the line for so long, because we knew our colleagues wanted the hard infrastructure bill, but we were going to pass that. We were, and we did. But we still have to continue to push for us to go bigger on climate change and so many other issues.
Our next question is from Lucia. Lucia wrote in, what about immigration? My son will lose his status when he finishes school. I know you fight for immigrants. Is immigration support in the bill you voted no on?
No, immigration support is in the bill we have yet to vote on, which is the Build Back Better Act. So 2 provisions for immigration were struck down by the parliamentarian. One is a pathway to citizenship. I'm forgetting the other one. Maybe I'll have someone from my team tell me what the other one that was struck down. Registry. And now we're looking at something called parole, which isn't a pathway to citizenship, but it will provide a 5-year window for immigrants to be left alone by ICE, which is a big deal because ICE has been harassing the immigrant community for not just under Trump, but it's even gotten worse under Trump. But it will also, and this is the big one, allow immigrants to travel back and forth to see family members that they haven't seen in years, especially if they were deported. So that's being discussed right now. That's what myself and Congressman Espaillat and Congressman Garcia and others are fighting to make sure it remains in the bill. Fingers crossed it stays, but it's in the Build Back Better Act. It was not in the hard infrastructure bipartisan bill.
We have time for just a couple more questions. Our next question is from Steven. Steven's asking, when are you expecting Build Back Better to be voted on?
My hope is next week, the week of the 15th. But there was a report that came out a few days ago that indicated that a CBO score may not be ready for several weeks. I worry about that because every day we don't vote on it, something else gets taken out of it or something gets reduced. I want to give you a picture of how lobbying works in Washington. These people have a lot of money, and they are contacting members of Congress every single day to ask us to do one thing and not another thing. So every day that goes by, a lobbyist is contacting someone asking them to reduce the bill or kill the bill or whatever. So I'm hoping we get it done as quickly as possible so they could get to the Senate, and hopefully the Senate holds the line on where it needs to be. The letter that my colleagues signed stated that they would vote on it by next week, even if the CBO score comes back at a level that they don't agree with, they will still vote in support of the bill. So fingers crossed, we'll see.
Our last question for the evening comes from Terry from Larchmont. Terry asks, how can we convince House and Senate members opposed to these vital programs for all Americans' health and welfare to support them?
It's really important, really important for you all to be in touch with our U.S. senators. Our U.S. senators are right there with us. They just need to consistently hear from us and know that we have their back in fighting for all the things we need in our district and all of the things that are part of both bills. It's really important for you all to be in touch with House leadership. You don't have to be from their district to be in touch with House leadership. So that's Speaker Pelosi, Majority Leader Hoyer, Majority Whip Clyburn, and Chairman Hakeem Jeffries, who's been a mentor to me throughout this process. But it's important for you to be in touch with those four as well, just to communicate, what you're fighting for and what we need to fight for and why. And it's also important to be in touch with the White House. You may not get to the president or his chief of staff, but trust me, they monitor the number of calls coming in, the number of emails coming in, et cetera, et cetera. But start with the Senate, also House leadership, also the White House, and obviously my office.
Thank you, Congressman and Ruthie, for such an informative Q&A session. We are coming to the end of this live event this evening. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for this important conversation with Representative Bowman. We appreciate the opportunity to speak directly with you as well as answer your questions. But if we were not able to get to your question this evening, you can leave a voicemail at the end of this call. You can send us an email at bowmantownhall@mail.house.gov. That email address again, bowmantownhall@mail.house.gov, or simply call the Town Hall line at 914-371-9220. Again, 914-371-9220. We'll host more of these events in the future to keep you informed on what we're working on, as well as other important updates. I'll now hand it back over to the Congressman Bowman for his closing remarks.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Sorry we didn't get to all the questions, but please email us your questions. We will definitely answer them, every single one, and follow up. Please continue to call us and reach out. We want to engage with you. We want to talk to you. I will be in the district soon, all over the place. Call us. Let's set up a coffee or a lunch or something. I look forward to seeing you all. I miss being in the district. Israel's been great, but I'm ready to come back home. So thank you again for taking the time and joining us. Really appreciate it. Please remain in touch with us. We need your feedback. We need your support. And looking forward to seeing you in the district. Peace and love, everyone.